Hey, how you doing? Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available for Monday the 3rd of August 2020 with me, Daniel Ruiz Tizon, episode 256. Hope you're all well, keeping on doing what you need to be doing to keep yourself going. If memory serves me right, this might be the first available August edition since 2016. I think I'm right on that. Or 2015. I know in 2015 there was a memorable summer special that year. Memorable to me anyway, but I think there might have been something in 2016 as well. Anyway, I hope that this show finds you well. It's coming up to 11:30 here in London. I'm just going to get my chair right. Should have done that before I started recording. I'm still recording on Audacity, which was an absolute nightmare to work with on Thursday's show. Early wobble there with the throat. Anyway, let's kick the show off this week with a hygiene success. Normally I make a big song and dance, justifiably, I think, about hygiene fails. This is actually a hygiene win that I saw outside the vets opposite my building. I think it's important to report these incidents as well as the failings. It's not often that I see a hygiene win, and this one heartened me and made me think too that if I was a dog owner, I think this is the kind of thing I'd have come up with myself. It involved a woman, early to mid-20s, can't remember the dog specifics as it happened way back on the 24th of July, and I've just held on to it, unable to fit it into any of these subsequent shows. And really, ideally, something like this, something momentous like this, I want it to go out to everyone because I think it's potentially inspirational. And I want more than just the small number of patrons to listen to this particular item. So this woman, there was a queue that had built up outside the vets, as it has the last 20 weeks during this lockdown in London, people observing the social distancing. The staff have finally adapted to using the masks, the face masks properly, because for weeks I was just seeing them. They were wearing the masks from early on, but they would remove them to speak to people outside the vets, which I think defeated the whole point of wearing a mask. And also often I'd see them with maybe the mask was on, their mouth would be covered, but their nostrils would be exposed. You do see a few people going with the exposed nostrils look. I don't understand that. If you're going to wear a mask, do it properly. Anyway, this woman that was outside the vets with her dog, she had one of those toy bones that looks possibly like a sex toy, really. And she was throwing it to her dog, keeping the dog occupied while they waited their turn to go in. And I noted that when the dog first gripped the toy bone in its jaws and returned it to the woman, I noted that she removed it from her dog's mouth with a tissue, and then she tossed the toy bone again and continued to use the tissue to handle the bone when the bone was returned to her. And this was especially impressive. Obviously, given the repetition, the tissue must have been getting sodden with canine saliva, and that's what happened because she binned the tissue. She got another tissue out from her pocket, and then started the process all over again. Now, of course, the fact the tissues would be getting wet with dog saliva, that is a hygiene fail. I'm assuming that by then she would have, like most people, I think now, been carrying hand sanitizer with her, so that would have dealt with that particular problem. But it's the idea behind this that impressed me. It's the intention, it's the ambition to pursue a more hygienic course of dog toy handling by this dog owner. It elevates it, to me, to the status of hygiene win. It was good to see. If it was a failure, it was a magnificent failure. And it may be in time that if this woman has just, say, recently rolled out this dog toy handling idea, that she sees what works within this, what doesn't, and she improves the method. You know, just as I used to do with toilet doors in public toilets in the late 80s, early 90s, where I would use my little finger to open everything and then just keep the little finger away from the rest of my hand. You know, eventually it got to a point where I started using tissues to handle any public toilet doors. You know, you evolve the idea over time. You work on it, you improve it. Every idea can be improved on. I think if I had a dog, I would probably use a latex glove to handle any, say, a toy bone, for instance. A Poundland one, the thin ones, not wasting one of those quality blue hospital latex gloves I use for library books on playing with a dog. But I'd certainly go down the glove route. Anyway, whoever this woman was, I salute you. I was very impressed. A quick dream to report, a listener dream actually, me having a dream last night. I've been awake since 5 actually, 5 a.m. More of that I think in a moment if I remember. In this dream I was a landlord. I had a very old-fashioned property, sort of bedsit type property, lots of doors, the kind of bedsit that I grew up in. And I had myself, I was there. I had an old friend, his wife, and their youngest kid. Nick MB, writer, podcaster, patron of this show. Nick was living there as well with his girlfriend. He might hear this and therefore become a former patron, spooked out that I had a dream about him. But, this show is about being honest. This was a dream that involved a listener. Also lodging in the house. I think it was a house or at least a maisonette. There was a narrow staircase that led up to all the rooms. Nicola Sturgeon, the SNP leader, she was lodging with us, sleeping in the front room, I think, which confused the layout of the home somewhat. At one point, Nick, that's Nick Bryan, not Nicola Sturgeon. I'm not a name shortener. And Nick and his girlfriend, they were in the hallway having a chat about some council tax paperwork with me, which would have fallen to me as the landlord to take responsibility for, might have incorporated it into the rent, but the council tax paperwork would have been under my name, and I was clarifying that with them. And Nicola Sturgeon, at that point, opened the front room door. Her hair is still as ever. I think if you have long hair, the hair's got to move. I don't know what it is with Nicola Sturgeon's hair. I'm not criticising the style. It's the fact it doesn't move. Maybe it's hair lacquer, but it just never moves. And Nicola Sturgeon had stepped out into the hallway and she asked if the three of us could keep it down. Nick wasn't happy with that. He took umbrage. Nicola Sturgeon gave him the "do you know who I am" line, which I thought was undermined by the fact that she was sofa surfing in the front room. Nick shot back, "So what? I'm the author of the Hobson and Choi books. I need to discuss this council tax issue with the landlord. You're sleeping in the front room, which leads into the kitchen. We can't access the front room because you're having another lie-in. Therefore, we're having to do this in the communal hallway." As someone of a Mediterranean background, the confusing layout wasn't new to me. As I said at the start of this dream recollection, it's the kind of building that I grew up in, but I could see that it was hard for my British lodgers. Let's move on to books. Not sure if I'm racing through today's show. I've just pieced it together, thrown it together. Really need to get out for a run this morning, otherwise it's going to haunt the rest of my day. On to books. Reading Lloyd Shepherd's The Poisoned Island, the second in his Regency period Horton books. It's the third that I've read. Unusually for me, I'm reading them in the wrong order, which is a little frustrating, but they do work as standalone books as well. But normally I do read books in order. And reading through it very quickly. I finished The English Monster a week ago. Patreon listeners, I think you heard me talking about The Word is Murder, Anthony Horowitz's book that I read after The English Monster. I finished the Horowitz at the weekend. The blurb for The Poisoned Island from the Good Reads website. The author of The English Monster takes us on another voyage of discovery from Kew Gardens to the island of Otaheite. I don't even know if that's actually a real name. I don't even know how it should be pronounced. That's crept up on me, that. By way of a murder investigation, London, 1812. For 40 years, Britain has dreamed of the Pacific island of Tahiti, a dark paradise of bloody cults and beautiful natives. Now, decades after the first voyage of Captain Cook, the new ship returns to London crammed with botanical specimens and, it seems, the mysteries of Tahiti. When days after the Solander's arrival, some of its crew are found dead and their sea chests ransacked, their throats slashed, faces even frozen into terrible smiles, echoes of victims of the Joker, as in the Batman and the Joker. Their faces frozen into terrible smiles, he said, his voice spiking there. John Harriot, magistrate of the Thames River Police, puts Constable Charles Horton in charge of the investigation. But what connects the crewman's dying screams with the ambitions of the ship's principal backer, Sir Joseph Banks of the Royal Society? And how can Britain's new science possibly explain the strangeness of Tahiti's floral riches now growing at Kew? Horton must employ his singular methods to uncover a chain of conspiracy stretching all the way back to the foot of the great dead volcano Tahiti Nui beneath the hungry eyes of ancient gods. I'm really enjoying it. I said that The English Monster was a slow burner, but that the final 150 pages were just stunning and reminded me of my experience reading Murakami's A Wild Sheep Chase, where the 100 pages blew me away. The final 100 pages, that is, they blew me away. Remains probably the best book I read, in the last decade. And that too had been a slow burner. But what happened after that, I was able to appreciate more and more what I was reading. I knew that I was reading a very special author, Murakami. And now, after that experience with The English Monster, I do feel that with Lloyd Shepherd, I'm reading something very special. These are absolutely brilliant books because, that Regency period, the early 19th century, is not really the period of the 19th century that I like. In fact, really, it's specifically the late Victorian era that I'm obsessed with when it comes to the 19th century. Moving on, let's have the first of today's Chin Travel Tours reviews. This is a feature that debuted on last Thursday's Patron episode 255. By the way, I think on that, Patron episode 255, I tweeted, I've done a lot of stuff on social media encouraging regular show listeners to retweet that show, and they would then get episode 255 transferred to them as a thank you for the retweet. And I was doing that because it was the 10th anniversary of the first ever episode of Please Don't Hug Me. Did I get a retweet? No, there were no retweets. I don't know. I don't understand this. I don't understand how the show works or doesn't work because my bandwidth is being absolutely drained right now by downloads. There are no new reviews. There were no retweets from regular listeners to get the bonus episode we transferred to them. It is a puzzle. It really is. Anyway, Chin's Travel Tours, the one-time used car salesman stroke relationship advice expert trying to salvage his travel company while looking after his family, which has doubled in size in the last 3-4 years. Very fertile man, well into middle age. I'm not sure that the travel company is going too well, judging by the reviews he's getting for selling holidays to a particular southern European resort. Long reviews today, so rather than beeping out the names of those involved, I'm just going to give them aliases, otherwise it will take even longer to get the show out if I'm having to search for the names and beeping them out. So please note all the names here in the following reviews have been changed for today's show. Review 1. Where do I start? On our arrival, we were informed that we get one toilet roll free. We would have to buy our own as we are self-catering. With this, I was slightly taken aback. Then we was told not to dirty the towels. I'm just reading it as it's been written. We was told not to dirty the towels as we would be charged. I think it's clear this is not a Guardian reader. I thought he was joking until we got to our room. In the kitchen, there was a list on the kitchen cabinet for items damaged or lost, ranging from £20 for a saucepan to £2 for a teaspoon. That is a pricey teaspoon. There was also a list in the bedroom, a single sheet, £8 to £30 for a mirror with various other items in between. These prices don't seem excessive, but if while you are shopping around, I won't name the location, the mirror at a cost of £30 can be bought to replace for 12, whatever, the currency conversion for that is £5.17. Then there is Kevin's big gripe, towels. We know of the two sisters from, I won't name the city, who paid £24 for 3 already grubby towels, and they filmed the transaction, handing the money over. This is when Kevin went ballistic, and the following day, whilst they were on a boat trip, he ransacked their rooms and stole their belongings. We seemed to be okay as we were not in a large group. Sorry, we seemed to be okay as we were in a large group. In our group, we had 3 large, bald-headed gents. I'm not sure the bald detail is relevant here. I'm not sure how it serves the story. I could be wrong. Let's continue. We had 3 large bald-headed gents which Kevin could not intimidate. Maybe the baldness is tied into being more intimidating, possibly. Kevin did try to intimidate, but to no avail. He mentioned to us about our towels being marked, to which I asked, had they been laundered? Kevin replied no. I asked him how you can charge for something that might be washed out. He told me he would put fresh towels in our room. I knew the towels he showed me were not our towels, as this is very clever, as I marked the corners of each towel in our room as we had sussed his scam. We was quite fortunate as there was no spare key to our room, so we knew our room would be safe. Kevin is without doubt an out-and-out bully. He picks on young ladies and the vulnerable. One morning there were several children playing pool, and on the computer, which had been paid for, Kevin came screaming out of his office at reception, telling them to get away and raising his hand to one of the children, until one of the parents in our group screamed at him that we do not treat children like that. His partner in crime, the not-so-lovely Maggie, comes across as being quite sly and very untrustworthy, as do all the rest of the staff bar one. This may have something to do with all the staff being... okay, I don't need to read that next line. I'm guessing this person, probably one of the 52% who voted for Brexit. I might need to cut through some of the rest of this. Maggie is English and she gives English people a bad name. We was only there for 2 weeks. I can't stand it when people speak like that. We were. How difficult is that? Not we was. We was only there for 2 weeks, but it felt like 2 months. The rooms are not clean, swept or mopped, bins not emptied, and those rooms that Kevin had spare keys for, no towels changed. Bearing in mind that used toilet paper is to be put in the bins. We know someone who has experience of that. Bearing in mind that used toilet paper is to be put in the bins, provided the bin in our toilet was not emptied in 2 weeks. We flushed from day one, but put bathroom rubbish in our bin in capital letters. Disgusting. Toilet's not cleaned. We had mould in our toilet. The whole bathroom in room 203 is not fit for human use. I know you get what you pay for, and this should have been cheap and cheerful. We just got cheap. Disgusting. Dirty, a terrible atmosphere, not to be recommended, and do not run up a bill on your room unless you know for sure what you have had, as you may find several things added on. We went as a large group of close friends for a relaxing, carefree holiday, but it felt like a stalag. We went open-minded, but was shocked at what was seen. People intimidated, frightened, and uncomfortable. Kevin walks around with the swagger of a gunslinger. He's not to be trusted and has the potential to be very dangerous. He makes Basil Fawlty look like Mother Teresa. You're listening to Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available, episode 256, Sweating the Small Stuff, currently twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Ways to get in touch: Twitter and Instagram, 1607 West Egg, facebook.com/DRT is available, still not functioning properly, my end of course, and you can email the show directly, DRT available at westegg1607.co.uk. Feeling slow this morning, did nothing work-wise at the weekend, which I think is the right thing. It's the right way for me to go. But the downside of that is that Mondays always turn out to be a very long day for me. So then I find myself scaling things back on Tuesday. I want to rest my eyes. I'll have been on the laptop most of the day. I've got thick NHS lenses, which I was warned about if I went down a cheap route. I was warned that the glasses, they'd be pressing down on the nose, they'd give you headaches. And, the sooner this whole COVID thing clears up, I've already had a letter from an opticians that I normally use who are pricier. I will go there when things calm down a bit because I do need new frames and probably new lenses, I think, too, because the decline in my eyesight this year is absolutely staggering. So consequently, my week starts really tough. And then already by Tuesday morning, I feel very ineffective. Last week, I just did 15 minutes of writing. I had all these deadlines to meet, which I told you about. I had to move my week around a lot. And, the general situation, the pandemic, the situation with a neighbour. I think they're still in hospital. I haven't texted them. I don't feel great about that, but I just really do need a break from all of these errands. Someone on Saturday morning had left a card outside her flat in chocolates, which, given how hot Saturday was, I'm not sure what state those chocolates will be in. The chocolates were still outside on the Sunday. I've no idea if the neighbour's in, because maybe these were left outside by neighbours who don't have her number, haven't texted her to say, look, we've left something outside for you. But I think if she was back, I would have had some sort of update. And I think late last week I put in a letter through the door that had then disappeared the following day, unless it was one of her relatives checking up on the flat or emptying out the fridge as they said they were going to do. I don't know what's going on, whether she's back. My aunt has advised me to break this pattern, that this will be an opportunity, or should be an opportunity, I take to scale back my errands for her. I'm not sure that that's going to be so straightforward. I had started to worry that she might be back on Saturday, which is not a great thing to be worrying about. But if she does return, there needs to be a few changes her end. Her family need to do something. There needs to be some care coming in. Maybe some grip bars fixed to the walls. Seriously, I mean, we did that for my aunt. This woman now is close to 80. She can't live there in the way that she's been living the last few years. And, I'm feeling right now, like with her in hospital, I'm seeing the life that I could have had, that I should have had, even though things are difficult. I would have felt a bit more respite had I been living this life without all those errands. And I don't feel great about feeling that, but I also think I'm justified in feeling that I've been saddled with this, and it makes me feel old before my time. These are things I didn't have with my own parents. They're things to an extent I've had with my aunt and uncle, but that's my family. We'll see. I've had no update. I think the way I'm just going to play it, if she does return, I'll have to, if I get dragged back into the errands, which I'm anticipating I will be, I'll have to see if I can still get the Daily Mail if I just go out later on the Saturday and Sunday. And, as I've said, the reason I go out so early, because people might say, well, no one's telling you to get up early. There are a lot of old people living around here. If you leave the Daily Mail to around 10 a.m. before you go and get it, it's gone. And I do not want to be spending more than the 2 minutes it takes me to cross the road, by going 10, 15 minutes to the next shop, or queuing up outside a Tesco garage to get this rag. So that's where I'm coming at it from. I've got family on both sides at the moment, family members on both sides who've got cancer, whose treatment has been stopped. In one case, on my dad's side of the family, this particular relative has lung cancer, and their chemo was stopped months ago. There's never a good time to get cancer, but this would possibly be the worst time to get cancer in the last however many years, because these life-threatening diseases are very much playing second fiddle to COVID. So it's a tough time hearing these stories. I don't know if she has given birth now. I'm not that close to my dad's family. One of my cousins on that side, she worked at an airport. She was pregnant, and when the lockdown kicked in, I think she's had to isolate at the airport, heavily pregnant, unable to see her partner. And I'm assuming that she's had the baby now. But yeah, I mean, everyone's experience of this lockdown, of course, is very different. But what's likely is that everyone has had a difficult experience with this lockdown. It's affected us in different ways. We've all got different stories to tell. I won't be the only person isolating alone. I can imagine how difficult it will be to be isolating, maybe alone with a child. How do you keep them entertained all the time when they can't even see their friends? So this whole period is just very strange. I might have said this last week. It feels relatively normal indoors. It's when I go outdoors that I think, yeah, this is very strange. This is. I mean, it's a nothing year this year, 2020. It was supposed to be the future, and now we're all, or at least should be, we're all wearing cheap face masks. I felt better after last week. I wasn't feeling great for about 2 or 3 days, and I think I tackled it responsibly. I tried to make sure I rested. I drank loads of water. I took quite a few painkillers, not too many actually, to be fair. I would normally take more, but after about 3 days, I felt better, and it was the same symptoms I was feeling, as I said, last winter, where I was struggling to breathe, and I was thinking, what's going on now? Last winter, you can attribute that to many different things. You're starting to stick the heating on, that can make you short of breath. You're picking up colds, you're picking up bugs, but this is summer. And I was thinking, why am I feeling the same symptoms now? And I'd completely forgotten that I've actually got a checkup, or had a checkup this week with the asthma team at the hospital who've helped me the last couple of years, who really started the process towards weaning me off the medication, telling me, look, you don't need to take your inhaler when you're running. Your asthma is under control. So they've been brilliant for me. It turns out that appointment has predictably been cancelled, but what I do have is a phone appointment on Friday with that team. And what I'm going to do, I want to ask them, just because it's something I keep coming back to, and something I've mentioned on this show a number of times in the last few weeks, that when I was struggling last winter, the doctor there told me we are seeing a very different kind of flu this winter. And I just want to remind them of that and say to them, do you think this might have been COVID? Because I don't think it was. It probably wasn't. But, a few months ago, we were thinking that it hadn't arrived in this country until early March. Then they started scaling it back. We got to January now. It's been proven that it was up north, ripping through carol singers, I think in the Bradford area around December time. So, how far back does this go? I'm just curious. I'd really like the opportunity to have that conversation with them, and it looks like I am going to be able to have that conversation with them. One thing that's concerning me, really, it's been going on now for a couple of years. I've mentioned it. I think all the editing doesn't really help. Is the tinnitus. It's relentless. It's both ears, which actually is a good thing, because if it was just the one ear, it would indicate hearing loss. I had an ear test, I think, in the last 18 months, and any hearing loss was deemed normal for a guy of my age. And I've taken all this stuff over the last 6 months now for the tinnitus. It's done absolutely nothing. So I had a call back from my doctor on Friday. He was back. I could hear that he wasn't happy about being back, which is understandable. He had loads of callbacks to catch up with. The problem is that, having tried everything that was readily available to someone with my symptoms, the tinnitus has not responded to anything, which leaves the very distinct possibility that it could be related to the medication that I'm taking, which can isolate certain symptoms. So it does fit in with the fact that the tinnitus has been a massive problem for the last couple of years. And during that time, I wasn't doing much podcasting. That came in about, September, October time last year. So 9 or 10 months ago. And what about the previous year? So I was told to come off everything for a month. This is come off everything related to the tinnitus, see how I feel. If after a couple of weeks I'm getting worse, don't go back to the nasal spray, but do stock up again on those saline sachets where you stick this nozzle up your nose. And it's basically like taking in seawater. Maybe that's what it is. And it did nothing. I was disappointed with it. But, if I have to do it again, I'll do that. It's not comfortable, but, it takes about a minute, and I'm happy to do it again. But if that doesn't work, then it's possible that on the prescription front, some horse trading could be on the horizon, that I might have to go on different medication, regular medication, which will not trigger the tinnitus. It's very disorientating. It's so loud that I'm convinced other people can hear it. And when you look into tinnitus, there is a form of tinnitus that if a GP has, I think, their stethoscope on or whatever, and they'll be able to pick up on it when they're examining. No, not you don't use a stethoscope on the ears, do you? When they're examining your ears, I think when they're sticking whatever they are into your ears, it's possible that a GP will be able to hear the ringing in some instances. So that's where I am medically. How many podcasters are going to give you that information? But it's just whatever. It's life. I'm saying that the things that are making me anxiety free right now, those chemical enhancements, there is a possible, well, I'm sure there are lots of side effects. The side effect two side effects that I've noted from very early on in terms of fight or flight. There's no flight when you're sedated like this. You are that laid back. You very rarely feel nerves, no matter what the situation. That's something that's concerned me from the beginning, because I've become embroiled in, situations in the last couple of years that would not have happened were I not on that stuff. So I've got no fight or flight mechanism at the moment. Well, I've got the fight. I've not got the flight. You need both. You could be the hardest guy in the world. You need both. Road's going there. Let's see if I can pick that up on the edit. And where was I on the second thing? The tinnitus is just simply saying, okay, look, I'm taking this medication, which helps me with this, but it's given me this as well. And, given the amount of people in this country who are sedated right now and are living lives for years on this kind of medication, they'll be weighing up similar situations as well. If I take this, it helps me with this, this, and this, but it's giving me a problem here. Anyway, in terms of switching off at the weekends, I have improved massively on that, except that when I down tools, there's no energy, so I literally just down everything. And aside from the Sunday workout, all I do at the weekends, given that right now I'm not doing any errands, it's housework, cat napping, reading, and catching up on Star Wars football fixtures. And I've even felt too lethargic, really, to cram in 2 or 3 Star Wars football fixtures on a Saturday, which I'm normally very good at doing. I could have eaten into some of the writing stuff that's piled up at the moment, but I was telling myself, look, it's the weekend, you need to rest. And then Mondays are always difficult. They're always long, because Sunday night I like to listen to The Unexplained with Howard Hughes for the full 3 hours. I like the live experience. I like making that commitment to a show. I don't want to do the listen again thing like I used to when I was working with a man. Don't want to have to spend the next day trying to catch up on half the show that I missed. So I listened to the show until 1 a.m. Then I was awake at 5 a.m. I had a headache. I had to take some painkillers. There were no birds singing, which was odd, because I often wake up earlier, certainly 2 or 3 months ago, and I do remember 1 or 2 nights where birds were singing really early, and I was thinking, why are those guys singing so early? And no bird song at 5 a.m. this morning. It was very eerie, and I never really got back to sleep after getting up at 5. So Mondays in general, very slow. As I've said, heading out for a run after this recording, and then I'll edit in the afternoon. Friday's run was really poor. It was too hot. That's my excuse. It really was hot, and I just thought after a lap, I think it was about 18 or 19 minutes long, which is slow for me for a lap. I can normally do that lap in about 15, 16 minutes. Just thought, I can't do this. I'm just not built to run in this heat, and I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of this if I continue, except pain. The armband, talking of pain, the armband is a real pain. Today I'm going to try and see if I can turn on the Strava app while the phone is already on the arm, because otherwise I'm running, those first couple of minutes still trying to get the armband on after sticking the phone in there. It's just, even sticking the phone in the inside reverse pocket of my interior shorts is easier than that. That's what you get for £6. The key slot is ridiculous as well, as I've said. It's so tiny. It's like trying to fit into a pair of small-sized briefs if you're a large in that department. You might get everything in, but it's snug. It's contained, but it's not comfortable. It's hammock-like. And I think at some point I might need to get one of those belts that I was shown by some other runner on Twitter, but they're £35. That is a lot of money. I mean, that's half of what my running shoes cost me. I think the run today, a couple of laps at least. That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I expect. It's a bit cloudy out there today, which is great for me. I think that's perfect running weather, and I think as much as I'll not enjoy it, it will liven me up for a long afternoon stroke evening ahead of editing and promoting this show. I've got some artwork to look at for the other podcast idea I'm working on. I've been talking to a big platform provider about it. They're interested enough to have a look at the artwork first, so a lot is going to depend on the artwork. You know, I do worry about taking on another show, because if it's as unsuccessful as this one, then I've got a big problem on my hands, and it's more audio work in the way of the writing. The writing is a worry in that I'm just looking at the situation with, you know, with live theatre for now. That is a real problem. Nothing's really happening there. So what do I do in terms of script writing? Are TV companies making anything right now? Are they commissioning anything right now? It's possible that they're not. And, you know, when you get a TV deal, a piece of work will be commissioned. There'll be a limited period on that commission while you make whatever changes, while they look at maybe a read-through or whatever. Right now, how's that going to work? We don't know how long we're going to be living like this. You know, so I don't know how many people might be working for a particular production company, what kind of deals might be offered now, if any. What if there's a deal that's offered but nothing's still happening in the next 6-7 months? They're not going to be able to cast anyone for any stuff. I don't know. That avenue right now, it's a concern. It's just those doors are closed. So this might be the time to try and get a big commercial show off the ground for purely commercial purposes. In terms of admin with the flat, the roof stuff, things moving on that front, which could lead to some disruption, and, you know, stuff with a neighbour, the downstairs neighbour, they'll need to access their flat and the halfway house next door as well to get the scaffolding up. If they need to get the scaffolding up, then they're talking about coming in and doing, you know, redecorating the flat this time themselves once they're sure that the work's been done. I think this time they're looking at replacing the LED flashing on the roof. It's the downside of living on a top floor, as always. When something goes wrong with a roof, it's not a good situation to be in. Last Thursday, moving the show on, I had some paperwork to take to my aunt's. I told them I wasn't well. My cousin couldn't really get down. It was going to be very difficult for him to get to London, so I had to do it. I went through the various details required with my cousin on the phone in the morning, and it was agreed with my aunt and uncle with difficulty, because they're stubborn, that I wouldn't be going into their flat. My aunt was telling me to stop being silly, but I was adamant. I took the paperwork to them. My aunt opened the door. She'd gone to ridiculous lengths to cover herself up, wrapping her head in a way that gave her an elephant man-like appearance. And I handed her the paperwork. I post-it noted where she needed to sign. She then asked me to take a look at some stuff for her, giving it to me to handle, which kind of defeated what I was trying to do. She wanted me to check her latest Nectar Point vouchers that she'd been sent, which are almost wasted on her because she doesn't understand anything. So, you know, I was trying to say to her, okay, look, it's clear with that voucher, it's such and such a number of points if you buy this particular thing. Look at the pictures. That's what they're saying you can buy, and that's how many points you'll get for that. We both noted that my uncle rather astutely was shielding behind my aunt as I stood outside in the communal hallway. My aunt noted it and called him out on it. Saturday she called me to see how I was doing. By then I felt much better. I could hear my uncle in the background. My aunt didn't even break off from our conversation. She just turned to my uncle and just yelled at him for almost a minute before coming back on the phone. Tu tío no era así cuando yo lo conocí. Creo que cuando le hicieron la transfusión en el hospital le dieron la sangre de un tío discutidor. Your uncle wasn't like that when we met. When they gave him that blood transfusion in hospital, they must have given him the blood of a very argumentative guy. I keep hearing this nowadays whenever they're clashing. I called them yesterday afternoon, no, yesterday evening, as it was my uncle's birthday. And a year ago, we were all in this Spanish Clapham restaurant that location-wise, obviously, I'm not very keen on. It was the day of the Community Shield. I think one of my cousins had tapped into some illegal stream on his phone to watch Man City beat Liverpool. And the year on, what a different world we're in. Anyway, I'd called my aunt and uncle. My aunt picked up, as she usually does. My uncle's not a big one for the phone, a bit like me. And my aunt was going on about how she might as well be on her own after my uncle had dozed off for several hours in his front room chair on his birthday afternoon. He didn't fall asleep during the cup final, she remarked pointedly. My uncle's a big Chelsea fan, going right back to the 60s. Taken in their heady 60s days, he and my aunt had lived in Hyde Park when they first came to London. Imagine that, immigrants living in Hyde Park. That wouldn't happen now. That wouldn't even happen, I think, if you were middle class. I don't think you could live in that part of London now. And my uncle's been a big Chelsea fan since the mid-60s. And I think right at the start of that, whatever it is, 56-year support now, he took in their long decline through the 70s and early 80s. Yesterday, they'd been watching some Spanish show where some woman had incorporated some of her late husband's ashes into a necklace. You can do that with my ashes, my uncle had quipped. Yeah, I'll hang them over my face, my aunt shot back. The Andalusians are a very vulgar people. My aunt's never been keen on ashes. Well, I'm not sure anyone is, but my aunt's always had an issue with them. She won't have them in the flat. Summer of 2002, I'd come back with my dad's ashes. She hadn't let me bring them into the flat while I stopped off at the shops to get some food in for that night, so I had to go across the road into Iceland in Stockwell with my dad's ashes. As you do, you know. Daniel Ruiz Tizon is available. Sweating the Small Stuff, episode 256. Ways to support the show, iTunes reviews, Apple Podcasts, whatever you call it. 30 seconds of your time. If you do, please enjoy the show. Do leave a rating and review if you enjoy it. If you don't, obviously don't. There is the Amazon link at danielruiztizon.com. If you click on that Amazon link, it takes you through to your site and recognizes you've come through my website and kicks back a small percentage of your Amazon shopping back to my work at no extra cost to you. You've also got PayPal and coffee.com, links at danielruiztizon.com. If you're not maybe keen on committing to the Patreon page, you can make one-off donations, large or small, by either of those links, and I'll retransfer that week's Patreon show to you. But of course, most importantly, the easiest way, the most direct way to support this work is via the Patreon page, patreon.com/DRT available. It's just $7 a month. You get nearly 2 hours of content at the moment every week. I've also introduced a second tier. The Toe Dipper, that's just $3.50 a month, and for that you get access to every other Patreon show. And as a welcome, you also get access to the studio episode of the A to Z of Me and My Dad, released to patrons earlier this year. And you'll get the Thursday Patreon episode unlocked for you. That's patreon.com/DRT available. Sign up there to support a different kind of podcast. Do please join the 16. Keeping this show alive. I'm looking at the time. It's 12:20. It's Monday. I'll have to probably put the bins out when I come back from the run. Just going to get on with the run, but the armband thing, that is trying to work out how that is going to be dealt with today. I can't see myself getting quicker at sorting that out. Anyway, let's move on. Another Chin Tours review. This is for the same mystery location. In general, the apartments are filthy. Within the mouldy, rotten bathrooms, you have a shower tray which takes over an hour to drain once filled. So after one person has had a shower, the bathroom floods, and the toilet has never seen any form of bleach or cleaner since the day it was installed. Those shower trays definitely bring back a few grim memories of holidays in that part of the world. Going on, the review says the so-called kitchen area is not fit for purpose, and I would certainly not attempt to cook in it until it has been decontaminated. I travelled with a party of 18 people. Between our party, we had 5 apartments, and each was the same, proving mine was definitely not a one-off. I had to ask for my bedding to be changed after 6 days, and was met with a grunt, almost as if I had asked for something out of the ordinary. The most worrying part of these apartments was the attitude and behaviour of the manager, Kevin. Remember, Kevin is not his real name. From what I have witnessed myself and been told from other guests, Kevin is only happy when he is making money from unsuspecting people, and he will achieve this, even if it means going to extreme lengths to rip you off. He is threatening, rude, aggressive, and violent. Below is a list of incidents which occurred whilst I was at the apartments. Within your apartments, there are 2 lists. They said they've attached photographs to their review. 2 lists stating that you have to pay for any missing, damaged, or dirty items. My apartment had 2 missing items from the kitchen, which I informed Kevin about shortly after my arrival. He then assured me these would be replaced the next day. This never happened. You will be charged for any dirty towels. This includes towels you use to mop up the water with from your leaking shower, towels or bedding which may have the remains of some cream on after showering, or towels which are given to you already dirty. I spent my holiday worrying about whether my children had dirty feet or would sweat out sun cream in the night and dirty the bedding. Probably the best advice I can give you is to never book a holiday from the chin. Also, really, do people need to go on holiday right now? I tweeted this last week. Is now the time to go on holiday? Do you want to be in some sunny resort wearing a face mask and you're going to come back with that two-tone Hanna-Barbera Fred Flintstone look? Think about it. Let's move on to this week's Nectar Points update as I look to wrap up this show. If my throat holds out. Swapped things around last week on my shopping. I did little on the Thursday as I had to take that paperwork to my aunt's. Did Sainsbury's on the Friday. No Brixton Pistons this week, thankfully. Always thankfully when I don't have to go there. The fact that it's located on Acre Lane, one of my least favourite roads. Acre Lane in Brixton, Landor Road, which connects Clapham North, Stockwell and Brixton. Always probably my all-time least favourite road. Just a really grim and grey road. The Stockwell end is okay. The Clapham North end is absolutely awful. And, okay, so Sainsbury's was on the Friday, and I was in the more sedate surroundings of the Stockwell at Lidl on Thursday. Only thing of note to report, well, 2 things. First of all, confusion on the blueberries. Their pricings aren't always clear on there. I couldn't see my usual blueberries. Picked up more expensive ones, which I assumed tallied with the price below them, as you would expect, and the price was the same price as I paid for the usual blueberries. And when I realised that they were actually more expensive, I thought, well, I'll get a refund here. And I went back to where the blueberries were, saw my blueberries there after all. So I needed to change them. There's no way to change anything in there. You've got to go back into a normal queue, basically. It's not like, say, a bigger supermarket where there is a customer services desk who can do your refund. There is no other way of doing it. I also intended to pick up a 6-pinter from Lidl as I was busting it back with the shopping on Thursday afternoon. But the expiry date, the latest date that I could find in there on a 6-pinter was the 5th of August. And I thought I can do better than that. I kept telling myself that because I was in 2 minds. And in the end, I convinced myself it's better to think long term. I did that. Next day in a Sainsbury's, picked up a 6-pinter with an expiry date of the 9th of August. So by waiting 24 hours, so close to the end of the show. So close. The sound of South London, etc., etc. Where was I? So, on the 6 pints of milk, I waited 24 hours and I bought 6 pints of milk. Is that another one? I was really looking forward to this bit. telling you about my long-term strategy, where by waiting 24 hours, I bought myself an extra 4 days with a 6-pint bottle of milk. These guys are killed out. Let's move on. I was impressed with myself, I should say, but those sirens have killed the moment. I mentioned on episode 255 on Thursday that I was prioritising decaf coffee because while I'm slowly winning the battle to avoid late night coffees, I'm still in double figures every day in terms of glasses of coffee. £7 for decaf in Sainsbury's. I was shocked, genuinely. As I tweeted, there was absolutely no chance of me paying that. I'll probably have to go to the Nine Elms Monster, a far bigger store, to get more options. And there's no way I'm paying £7 for decaf. I'll stick with the heart attack. Meantime, King of the Shataf, Minty Matt, tweeted £7. That's the cost of an entire month's Patron subscription to the show. I hadn't even thought of that. And then it crossed my mind, not even that actually. The show is $7 a month to support, which is around £5.50. So for the price of that decaf, you can still, at the current output of podcasts, get 4 bonus shows a month for less than it will cost me to buy that decaf. They were out of Sainsbury's own crackers as well. Not sure if I should read anything into that. Is that anything to do with the hoarders? Is that what they're attacking right now? Because what was it recently that's been disappearing? I can't remember. Something else has been absent recently from Lidl. Oh, the beans, the Newgate beans. So with Sainsbury's at the moment, it's Sainsbury's own crackers. Yesterday, Sunday, post Sloth Saturday, I had 10 crackers either side of a Leviathan-sized bowl of lunchtime porridge, a glorious bowl of lunchtime porridge. So I do need to restock on the crackers. I noticed when I was in there that they had high fibre crackers for something like £1.30. I saw those and I was thinking, who thinks right now in the middle of a pandemic, hey, I think now might be the time for me to go down the high fibre cracker route? Who thinks that? Mind you, if you're working from home through this period, you want to go down that route if you feel that your body might benefit from a period with high fibre crackers. I suppose now would be the time, so long as you've not been made to return to the office. Points-wise, remember I'm 3 points down a week right now with no radio times to buy for the neighbour. Let me tell you what I got. Just the one receipt today. I went in there on 71 points, bought the 6 pints of milk with that 9th of August expiry date that so pleased me that I so wanted to tell you about until those sirens gate crashed the show, as they do every week. Bought a kilo of frozen green beans that I stuck in the freezer with huge difficulty. Bought some facial tissues. Bought an air freshener, 2 loose bacon potatoes, which weren't that big, but they were very pricey. I just thought, well, they're about twice the price of what I normally pay for bacon potatoes, but I just can't be bothered putting them back, so I paid over the odds for them. Bought 2 single oranges. I bought a single lemon in case I started feeling unwell again. Bought some hair conditioner, all-purpose cloths, basic 35p. Accrued 10 points on my purchases, leaving me with a new points balance of 81, which are worth just 40p. That seems awfully low, really does. But so nothing major to report there. But there was something major to report, or there is something major to report, rather, from Saturday's calzone conversion. And this is something that's happened a few times in the last week, dropping stuff. But obviously the calzone is a huge thing to drop, and it was the most dramatic drop. Poor technique on my part. I topped up the thin and crispy budget spicy chicken pizza for the calzone conversion. The oven door opens awkwardly, opens on the left, which is not something that I've experienced before. And I prepped the calzone, as I always do, to the left of the oven, had my chopping board there. I was so lethargic that I leant over the oven door to put the pizza in. So I was still to the left of the oven door, and I leant over it with the pizza to put it on the top shelf, the top oven shelf. It was so heavy, so top heavy, that it slid halfway off and about 70% of the ingredients fell to the floor. It was a tough moment, but the way I handled it And, it might be the meds behind that. I simply refocused. I told myself, okay, we go again. This time I'm going to do it even better. Topped it up again within 5 minutes. I was walking around the door this time rather than leaning over the door. Lesson learned. It was in the oven 15 minutes later. I was eating it. I posted a picture on the Twitter and Instagram feeds at 1607 West Egg of what was a significant spillage of ingredients swept up in a dustpan and brush. It was a hard moment, but I do like the way that I came back from that. I think there's a lesson there. I'm really pleased with that. I think sometimes you have some strange incidents which short term are painful, but long term you learn from, and they don't happen again. I just got on with it. And on that positive note, that is it. That is the end of this week's regular show. Patron listeners will get their weekly bonus edition, episode 257, this Thursday. That's the 6th of August. If you want to join up, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/DRT available and sign up there to unlock all the bonus content. Thank you guys for listening. If you're not with us on Thursday, I'm back next Monday with episode 258. Get those shoulders back. Keep on walking towards the sun. Wash those hands. I'm Daniel Ruiz Tizon, and this start of the week I have been available. An addendum, the second in a couple of weeks. Certainly not as depressing as 2 weeks ago, just annoying and related to the armband. So essentially, very early on, I am seeing that I'm paying the price for another cheap purchase. Now, I don't know how difficult it can be to get an armband right. I'm having real problems with my run. Getting the Strava app to work, getting the phone, getting the handset into the armband. So I've got back from my run. It was an important run in that I did what I said I was going to do on Thursday's show that I didn't do on Friday because it was too hot. I tweaked the run. So the second lap, I took on that segment, the uphill segment that I've only done 2 or 3 times. And it was tough, but I did it okay. And so I completed this, the latter part of my run, doing a completely different route. Well, not a completely different route, that's not true. Mostly a different route. And because I was aware that it was going to be shorter, I made sure I upped the pace. All the while, the handset is in the armband. I'll tell you how I did it. So I put the keys in the front reverse pocket in the interior shorts. Okay, I didn't think I could do the key slot again. You'll have heard the issue with the key slot earlier on in this show. I tested out the phone first. I tried to work out whether by pressing go on the Strava app, whether I could do that while it was in the armband, through the plastic in the armband. And it seemed to be the case that yes, it could do it. So I slipped the phone in, having set the GPS and all that palaver, and I started the phone. The way I'd had to put it on, the phone was on the inside of my arm, facing towards my chest. It was uncomfortable. It wasn't uncomfortable. I just couldn't move the left arm a bit, like I'd had maybe a stroke, that kind of thing. But I adapted half a lap in. So I've done the first lap, and I'm convinced that the armband is working. And then I start the second lap, which is a very different route. I wanted to test myself in a different climb. And, the one thing I'm guilty of is not really varying my runs. I'm a creature of habit. And it may be that the little that I've read on running, that there may be some benefits to the fitness, the levels of fitness, if you're running different routes. So I did that, and it went okay. And I'd done about, 29 minutes. I thought, well, that's enough. That's enough. I'm not going to do a third lap. It's getting a bit warm, and I've got to edit this show. And I come home, and I check the app, and it's only recorded the first lap, which was fairly fast by my standards. But where's my second lap? You know, where's the second lap? Where's this different route that I've done? Why has it not recognised it? Why has it only recognised the first 18 minutes? The reason for this addendum is that if I don't talk about it today, I could wait until Thursday's show to talk about it, but then I've got to sit on this for 3 days. Got to sweat this for 3 days. Well, I'll do an addendum. I'll get it out of the way today. And that's it. It's done. It's dealt with. It's a bit like the calzone. You know, the toppings, they fell on the floor. Dustpan and brush, get on with it. 5 minutes later, I've added the substitute toppings to the calzone. Just get on with it. Maybe this is the new me, the setbacks. You know, whether it's a cheap pizza or a cheap armband, I come back from them. It doesn't matter. I know what I did. I know that there was a second lap. There was a slur in my words, tired. There was a second lap. It was a different lap. There was a second lap. You get what you pay for. Unless, of course, $7 for a long-running indie show, etc., Mondays and Thursdays, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, there's the addendum.